When it comes to video game companies and just overall technology companies, one of my favorites is personally Sony. Howdy everybody and welcome to another stock analysis video. We are going to be analyzing today Sony because I love my PlayStation 5 and personally I just love a lot of the products that Sony actually has. I mean, they make headphones, they make PlayStation, TVs, they have music, they just have like a ton of other stuff. I think they even have like software as well. Like, it's just absolutely incredible, and I love Sony as a company. However, I do want to see if their stock price actually matches their fundamentals. So let's get started with this analysis. Starting off with the dividend summary, Sony actually does pay a dividend, a rather small one of 0.43%, which ends up being around 27 cents a share for an annual payout of 53 cents. Payout ratio in regards to the net income barely gets to 10% of 9.85%. 5-year growth rate though of, look at this guys, almost 25%. And I was saying that Visa MasterCard had a high 5-year growth rate when it comes to their dividends. Sony is just really up there, and I personally think that because of this, if they're able to sustain this, they might be able to grow their dividend even faster in the upcoming years. Dividend growth has been consecutive for 6 years in a row. Ex-dividend date was September 28th, payout date was December 8th, and they pay out their dividends semi-annually, which is very peculiar and very unique. Coming over here to the calculator, we got the ticker symbol Sony, S-O-N-Y, Sony obviously, $156.6 billion. And before we go on, let me just say, this market cap is actually calculated. When I first put in this ticker symbol, the market cap that actually came up was in Japanese yen, which is, as you can see right here, it's actually like a lot. It's what, like $18 trillion? But again, this is in Japanese yen, not correct. Changing it over to US dollars is actually only $156.6 billion, right? So that is what it is. That's the actual market cap in US dollars. PE of NA. This could actually mean two things. Either A, that because their PE is in Japanese yen, we don't really have the data for it, or B is that, well, they just weren't profitable last year, which I kind of find that hard to believe. Share price of $123.86. As we remember, annual dividends of 53 cents a share. Amounts paid in dividends every single year ends up being around $660 million. And after this is paid, they're still left with $7 billion in cash flow, which actually ends up being a payout ratio in regards to the cash flow of almost 9% of 8.63%, which is actually really good because I personally like to buy anything under 60%. Now coming over here to the fundamentals, we got the net income 5 years ago of, look at this guys, not even $7 million. That's $658 million to 1 year ago, $10.6 billion. That is a huge increase. That is a massive increase actually, at 168% from 5 years ago to 1 year ago. That is absolutely massive. I mean, when the PlayStation 5 came out, there was such a huge demand for it that they were having problems actually trying to find it, which is incredible to think about. Next, we got the cash flow, and 5 years ago they had $4.3 billion to 1 year ago of $7.6 billion. That is an increase of 44% with an average 5-year free cash flow of $7.6 billion. And as you can see right here, their cash flow isn't that good actually, which is kind of surprising. Now, the reason for this could just be because they have a lot of capital expenditures, right? They could just be reinvesting that money back into their company, and maybe they're just not even taking debt. Maybe let's actually wait until we see the debt metric to see if they are actually issuing more debt or if they are reducing their debt. If they're reducing their debt, then that means that they are pretty much increasing their cap expenditures, which is actually a good thing. Now, looking at the revenue, we got 5 years ago of $68.3 billion to $81.3 billion. Guys, that is a massive increase of 16%, which is just incredible to see. And in fact, this is just a really smooth looking line. This is actually pretty flat when it comes to the actual known numbers for the revenue. However, if they are able to keep this steady, they might be able to continue this revenue throughout the upcoming years. Now we come to the debt, and unfortunately, well, I kind of was wrong in my previous statement. They are increasing their debt, guys, by a significant amount. 5 years ago, it was almost $11 billion in debt to today of almost $24 billion. That is an increase of 51%, which is just absolutely massive. I don't know where this is going. I don't know why their cash flow is so low. I really don't understand why. If it's not going to capital expenditures, maybe they made acquisitions, right? Because cash flow is used to pay off a couple of things, and one of them is make acquisitions, right? So they just probably made a lot of acquisitions within the past couple of years. I suggest you go in and do more research onto the reason why their cash flow is so low. But regardless, their debt is significantly high, 51% increase. That's a really bad thing to see. Next, we got the shares outstanding, and something that a lot of people tend to overlook. You want this to be going down, not up, because this tells you whether or not the company is diluting you as the investor or not. As you can see right here, they are buying back shares, but it's really a small buyback. 5 years ago of $1.3 billion to today of $1.2 billion. That is a decrease of about almost 2% at 1.81%. So it's not a huge increase. So this is telling me a couple things here when it comes to their cash flow. They're not buying back shares with their cash flow. So they're clearly issuing debt, so they're not decreasing their debt through their cash flow. They may be making acquisitions with you using their cash flow, and they're maybe like issuing more debt to buy all these acquisitions up. So that might be the reason why debt is going up and cash flow is going down, because they're having a lot of acquisitions being made. And lastly, we got the cash equivalents, and as of today they have $7.9 billion in cash equivalents with an average cash equivalents of $10.1 billion. And now with all of those metrics, we are going to make 3 assumptions of low, medium, and high in regards to the growth and required rate of return. For their low assumption, I'm going to say, guys, 2% for their growth, because take a look at this. They're competing against the obvious console wars, right, of Xbox and Sony. However, Nintendo's also in there, and there's a lot of other consoles that may come up in the future. You don't know this, right? You don't know. Google may actually end up coming up with their own console. Apple may come up with their own console. Amazon may do the same. So we don't necessarily know where this is heading, but regardless, I'm going to assume 2% for the low assumption because of this fear. Required rate of return of 10%. And with those two metrics, we actually get a target share price of $155.12, not adjusting for debt. Now for the median assumption, I'm going to say around 5%, assuming that, everything stays pretty much the same. I'm going to say around 5% with the next 4 to 5 years. Required rate of return of around, again, 10%. We get a target share price of $172.26. And now for the high assumption, assuming that everything goes great, Microsoft does bad and all this stuff, their Xbox line just goes horrible, Nintendo goes the way of the Wii U, where they just don't make any sales and that kind of stuff. I think they're going to be making around 7% for the growth, required rate of return of 10%. This comes out with a target share price of $184.49. Now guys, they do have a lot of debt, right? We saw this. We need to adjust this for debt. Doing so, for the low assumption, this goes down to $142.21. For the median assumption, it goes to $159.35. And for the high assumption, it goes to $171.58. With a margin of safety of 5, 10, and 15%, we would ideally like to buy anything between $120.88 to $135.10. For the median assumption, we would like to buy anything between $135.45 and $151.39. And for the high assumption, anything between $145.84 to $163 would be a pretty good buy-in point, at least for my assumptions. Current share price, guys, is $123.86. So this means that even with the highest assumption, you're still pretty much in the clear, right? So the fact that, we are at $120.88 for the lowest assumption with the highest margin of safety, we're barely in the clear. This pretty much just tells me that, at least with my assumptions of 2%, 5%, and 7% for the growth, and the required rate of return across the board of 10%, this is a pretty good buy. This is just my opinion. I'm not telling you to use these numbers, and if you don't agree with me, I suggest you get this calculator. I made a video about it. It's updated. You could go onto this video. The link for this calculator is on the description. You go in there, you make a copy, and you make your own assumptions, right? Because again, my assumptions may be different than yours. So that is what it is. All in all, I'm actually a pretty huge fan of Sony. I just wish that they had a little bit higher dividend, but honestly, that's not really much of an issue. My issue is mainly with that cash flow and that debt. That's really bad, guys, and that's definitely something to take a look at. But that pretty much does it for this episode. Like if you like, comment, subscribe. It really does help with the algorithm on YouTube. You can follow me on my new tech sites of BitChute, Odyssey, and Rumble, where in addition to my stock analysis videos and crypto videos with exclusives as well. Alright, so with that said, peace out and be on the lookout for the next stock analysis video.